Welcome back to the Midlife by Design podcast. I'm your host, Lori Lisai, and I'm a human design teacher and alignment coach here to help midlife women use your human design to shed others' expectations and be who you came here to be. Today I have with me the Goddess Wisdom Council. So I met this group of 4 women on my recent visit to Imaloa, where I'm hosting the Wild Women by Design retreat. And let me tell you, they are incredible. Cora, or Coco as she goes by, Yadi, Ivana, and Anita are beautiful souls, both inside and out. And together they form the Goddess Wisdom Council. So in today's episode, we're diving into goddess archetypes and their power to help you step into the best version of yourself in midlife. So let's dive in. Welcome back to Midlife by Design. Today I have with me the Goddess Wisdom Council. Yeah, you heard that right. These are 4 amazing women, and I am so excited for you to meet them and for you to just bask in their wisdom. So welcome Anita and Cora and Yadi and Ivana to the pod.
Hi. It's our honor to be here. Yeah,
Woohoo!
we're so excited to sit down with you, Lori.
Yay, me too. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourselves and how the Goddess Wisdom Council came to be? And for human design reference, we're talking with 3 manifesting generators and a projector. So, yeah, Anita and Yadi and Ivana are the manifesting generators, and Cora is the projector. So, yeah, we'd love to hear your story.
Well, it was the projector that started it all. So projector, take it away. I'll give you the invitation.
Thank you. It's so interesting because I'm going, wow, I initiated in a way. But what happened was I was in a really deep meditation, Lori, and I saw this vision of the 4 of us with a couple other women at the time on the island I was living on, Hawaii, on Kauai, in Hawaii. I saw all of us on the beach dancing around a fire with flower crowns. And I just felt this knowing that we were supposed to all come together on Kauai. So I sent an email to all the women I had seen in this vision and invited them to Kauai. So in some ways, I think, as a projector, I feel like that dream or that vision in the meditation was spirit inviting me. So I was invited into that vision and then invited the ladies, the goddesses, and we're all around the country. I was in Hawaii, Anita and Ivana are in the New York area, Yadi's in Miami, and everyone just said yes, 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 yes. And I invited them saying, I feel like we're meant to come together to retreat, to share our wisdom and learnings, to have fun and play, and to really bring together all of our spiritual lineages. I didn't even really know what that meant at the time when I wrote it. And it took us a while to get our schedules aligned, but about a year later, November of, I want to say 2017, we all came together on Kauai. And I'd love it if someone else would continue with it, about Yadi. That's what I was feeling.
I love this part of it. Well, first, when we received the email from Coco, we started to meet on a monthly basis, virtually. And so there was that intention of us just coming together and just sharing our medicine with one another. And so when we ended up coming to Kauai, it turned out that on the date that we arrived to the date that we left, there was a council of 13 indigenous elders from around the world, from everywhere from South Africa to Colombia to Tibet, that came together in Kauai with the same purpose of being of service to Mother Earth. And we didn't know about it till Coco found out about it a few days before our arrival. So in essence, we didn't know that we were coming in to form a council. But when we were there in council with many others, it was clear that the council had been formed. And
Mm.
so that for me is a really important part of the story because it speaks of synchronicity. It speaks of divine timing and place,
Mm.
because since then we've ran several retreats, and there's always magic to the place that calls to us to gather. And so it was Kauai, and the calling was not just for us, it was for many other people on the planet. So yes.
And I'll just add something as well. This is how we got our name. So, we had the Wisdom Council. I think they're called the Wisdom Council, right, guys? Like the elder, it's called something
Not
like
sure. Could
Yeah,
be.
it is.
and so we were like, well, it's us. And when we said Goddess Wisdom Council, a few of us, namely probably me and Coco, were like, are we goddesses though? Like it just seems so like, oh, outlandish, and what? And because we were uncomfortable with that name, we were like, let's do it because there's something here. And so the Goddess Wisdom Council was, we named us that after that trip. And we're still working with goddess energy, as far as I know Yadi does this as well. It's like to work with a certain archetype that is, maybe is you, but isn't you all the time. And weaving that in, it sort of gives you the permission to be as grand and as great as you're meant to be. You know what I mean? And so for me, that was huge because I could not see myself as a goddess. I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, it just seems so outlandish. But for me, that was a huge part in awakening parts of me that I knew were in me, but I just didn't feel like I had the permission to do it.
Mm, beautiful. What an amazing story. And what you're talking about, Ivana, leads me to my next question, which is about the goddess archetype and how maybe you could explain like how do you see it through the goddess wisdom council's eyes, and what does it mean to you and how do you embody it?
I'll
Mhm.
let Anita or Yadi answer that one.
I can answer that. So we do have this one thing that we do with our community. Right now, it's called the Becoming Community. And like Ivana was saying, we do this thing where we can either choose a goddess that we're feeling connected with and do this thing called braiding with the goddess. And that is one way that we can connect with the energy. Or sometimes people are just wanting to connect with the goddess energy, the divine feminine. And so just thinking of things that kind of open us up to that energy, which a big thing in that is receiving, right? There's so many times where we're giving and giving and giving and don't allow ourselves to receive. And so that's one big thing that we encourage our people to do, whether they are man, woman, non-binary, like connecting to that goddess part inside of them, that divine feminine, so that you can receive the energy, receive the gifts that are around. Because if we're just out there, like go, 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 like obviously we do need our divine masculine energy as well, right? To get and make things happen, to create the stage upon which our divine feminine dances upon. But if we're just in that, then we don't connect to our divine feminine and to our beautiful way of receiving. So that's, I would say, one of the main ways that we encourage our people to connect to that energy.
Mm,
And I'd like to add about the work having to do with archetypes,
mm,
because for me, I have for a long time now, I've had an initiation program called Medicine Woman Way. And so in that initiation, which is a 13-month initiation, what we're doing is that we are connecting with what are known as the original clan mothers, and there's 13 of them. And each clan mother is a representation of the principle of the Earth Mother. the Earth Mother being the divine feminine. And so what I learned through guiding that work and first being initiated myself through a shaman I work with in Mexico is that when we are tapping into energies that are mythological in proportion, we are able to awaken, like Ivana said, parts of us that may be dormant. And so rather than seeing, a deity, a saint, a goddess as outside of us and us connecting to this energy as something that is not within us, it's one way to connect, but it's incredibly powerful when we can connect by awakening that archetype from deep within our inner landscape. And when we're able to do that, it gives that archetype a unique blueprint that doesn't yet exist. Meaning we don't exist anywhere else in this entire multiverse, which is beyond comprehension of enormous. And so each of us is unique. So when we are connecting and birthing through us these universal archetypes, they are not the same. The way that Anita is going to bring forth an archetype like Yemeya, the goddess of the ocean, Mother Ocean, is going to be very different to the way that Coco is going to bring her through, or you would bring her through. And so it just adds to the incredible diversity that's life. And so as the Goddess Wisdom Council, what for me has been amazing is just to come out from the archetypes of the original clan mothers that I've been working with for so many years, and then exploring actually now through the work that we're recently putting forth, which is going to be an oracle deck of goddesses. So now it's just like opening up, like if there were only 12 archetypes, the world now opens up to like infinite possibilities because there's so many different cultures, wisdom traditions in our world, each with their own archetypes. And so it's just infinite. The possibilities are just infinite of constantly becoming, which is, the theme of this membership that we have, becoming, and how becoming is not something that then happens and you plateau, but it's constantly in motion and constantly evolving.
Yeah. Wow. Ivana, did you want to add something?
Oh, I was just overwhelmed with excitement and energy when Yadi was talking. So that's why
Yeah. Same. My body's just like popping off over here.
yeah.
I'm actually curious. So a number of my listeners are relatively new to human design or new to spiritual personal development work. So this 5 line of mine wants to get practical with examples. I'm curious if one of you could speak to what does it look like when you are embodying one of the specific goddess archetypes, like bringing her through. Okay, would love to hear either.
I can do a quick one because I actually have my book back there. That's my book called Shallow Waters. And literally when I embodied the goddess Yemeya, I ended up writing a historical fiction novel where she is the main character. So there's so many different ways that are practical that you can use to bring this energy into the world. And that's super practical, writing a novel.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't know, practical. I don't know if it's practical.
For you, it is, Anita.
It's 3D. It's 3D.
It's 3D.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's what I was looking for. That's amazing. Cora, did you have something there?
I would say there's also something about knowing what archetypes are already very naturally alive within us. Like I have a lot of like Kuan Yin energy and some Mother Mary energy, and there's like certain archetypes that I'm aware are really already very alive. And then there's some that are more dormant. So because of some circumstances in my life right now, I want to braid with a boundary setting, like badass fiery goddess. And so I'm thinking Kali, I'm thinking Pele, and if I want to braid with them or call them into my life, it's as simple as just saying, Kali, Pele, please assist me. Please awaken within me. I'm asking for your help and guidance in this time. You know, it can be a simple request to tap into that energy.
Love that. And you were talking about the specifics, which I love, thank you, of a couple of different goddesses. And it sounds like, Yadi, you talked about the 13 archetypes that you've been working with. And are all of these different components of the work that you do in becoming? Do you are you pulling in different goddess archetypes all the time and talking about them?
It's a journey. So initially, for example, I could say that since I was 15 years old, Western astrology really called to me. But I always approached it from an evolutionary perspective, meaning that I saw the signs as archetypes. And I saw that really the medicine wheel, I saw it as a medicine wheel, and that there was a 13th element which was in the center of the chart. And that 13th center was the totality of us being able to, at will, call all the different signs. And what Coco's saying about the fact that there's certain archetypes that we've already come here with, that we're already very versed in. I feel like initially, especially with astrology and human design, the first step is to really start to honor and connect those archetypes that are already innate with us. And then as we go along in the journey, then we get to the point where Coco is, which is like, this is how I see it as evolutionary, because it's not fixed. It's not, well, shit, this is just how I am. Oh, well,
Yeah.
I'm all water, or I'm too much fire, right? But instead saying, okay, how now as a co-creatrix do I call upon different elements to balance and harmonize who I'm becoming and who I choose to become? And so then that's where the study of different archetypes comes into place, and the willingness to willfully braid with these archetypes. And then you get to this place where along the journey, which I would say is the case for all four of us, where these archetypes are where we've been doing this for so long that it's a little bit like walking into your closet and asking yourself, what am I going to wear today? Right? I have this audition. Yvonne is an actress. I have this audition. What archetype do I want to walk onto set with? Right? Or whatever it may be. I have a date. And then it gets to the point where it's not just on a daily basis or on a seasonal basis, though there's many different layers to it, but then it's at will, meaning that you could be in a moment as a parent, for example, where you within 5 minutes are calling upon many different archetypes. And so that's kind of where we are right now. So as it pertains to becoming, we're just pulling upon the archetypes. And then what happens with mentorship is that it's less about what you say or the concepts that you're teaching, and more so about the embodiment that you're in, that you're drawing people into as it pertains to being in a vibrational frequency. So then the people that come to work with us are just sliding into that vibrational frequency. And yes, it is about the practical teachings that we have, but I would say that it's so much more about the fact that we're in the embodiment, the natural embodiment of this work, and that we ourselves are also in the process of becoming, because there is no arrival, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Love that.
And I want to step in and just add a little bit of the practicality in it, because I am the Capricorn, and I love practical magic, which is, I feel like what we embody. And so for our becoming membership, right now in this sort of 9 month to a year cycle, we're working with alignment. So it's like aligning our spiritual body, aligning our emotional body, aligning, this week is going to be about aligning with spirit. So it's a lot about the goddess and a lot about great spirit, and aligning with the void or God, or however you want to say it. And so for me, the way I look at it is almost like it's like, broken bone or whatever, and it's like alignment here, alignment, 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 until like, what is that now becoming? Who are we becoming in this body? You know what I mean? And then, like Yadi said, it's like, next year or even next month, like who we're becoming is something different. So we're always evolving who we are, what we teach, depending on who is with us. We have about 31 members that we meet with every month, and they tell us sort of energetically what it is that they need to do, as well as us. So at any time we decide, okay, we're going to teach alignment with spirit or emotional body, you better believe all of us are going through that process together. So whatever subject we pick or picks us, we definitely go through it. So we always laugh when it's like a subject like, aligning with our emotional body, and then everyone's bawling, and it's it's always something we're like, damn it, couldn't we say just like align with the wealth, like just bring us the wealth. But yeah, it's definitely a process that we all go through together.
That's beautiful. You've mentioned the term braiding, and I just want to circle back to that to get a specific definition. Like, how do you view that term in the work that you do?
I can explain what that is. So it's just braiding your energy with a specific archetype. So if you imagine what a braid looks like, right? You're just bringing it in with you. And the interesting thing with what we do, it's like we are going to have like the oracle deck and things like that, but most of our work that we do with people is more practical in a sense, right? It's not, we're not like talking about goddesses the whole time, right? Like it's not, that's not really what we do. We did have 1 month where we were talking about, the archetypes in that way, and we taught people about braiding. But mostly, like Ivana was saying, it's like, okay, if we're doing alignment with our emotional body, like what are we talking about? We're talking about maybe the first or most extreme emotion we remember having, right, as a child, and going through it. A lot of many of us are trained as spiritual psychologists and coaches and embodiment, like yoga like so we're able to hold space for people in that way if they do need to go back to a place that feels heavy, big, just to clear, really. And I mean, to me, be able to braid, right, with a goddess if that is what they want to do. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out. It's not really, it hasn't been one of our main things that we do. It's a lot more practical what we do
Mm-hmm.
on the call. Practical magic. I like how Ivana said that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean the term braiding is such a beautiful metaphor because it recognizes that you're bringing different parts of yourself along the journey. So you don't have to, like you said earlier, just shift and suddenly be this goddess, you know. You can be your messy human self at the same time. And the point that you're making about the embodiment is really where change happens, right? That's where transformation actually happens, is when you are embodying it, when you're actually putting this stuff into practice. So a lot of listeners, because they're in midlife, they're going through major life transitions. And so I'm curious, if do you have any stories to share, either of your own or of people that you're working with, where embodying goddess archetypes like help women kind of reclaim the power during this phase of midlife?
I'll share. I mean, I think just for me, as I alluded to before, I feel like boundaries have been it's been challenging for me to set healthy boundaries. Of codependency has been a big part of my life from a really young age. And I'm a new mom, in midlife, which is an interesting space to be in. And part of that, becoming a mom, has been, oh, I don't even have the energy for codependency with other people. Like I don't have the energy, the bandwidth for drama and fluff relationships. And like, so that's, I mean, Kali boundary energy and such has just come online becoming a mama.
Love it.
And I've also chosen in my life to surround myself with really big personalities and big energy. And it mirrors my mom growing up. And in midlife, I feel like for a long time I would shape shift and get small and really give those big energies like the stage and the lead. And into midlife, I feel like I've been a hard no to that dynamic. So calling upon the goddesses I was talking about, like Kali and Pele, and there's others, those are just the two coming up. For me, they've really served me in stepping into my power and speaking my truth and taking up space and recognizing it's not my role to constantly accommodate, although that's what I did really well for a long time. So that has been a powerful shift for me, especially in relationships and dynamics. I'm still working on it. I mean, like I'm still in it big time. Not on the other side of it yet.
I just love to add to that, Coco, because I just love the way in which you're always so willing to bring your story. You're so generous with bringing your own personal story into it. And so I want to just piggyback right off that and say that the way in which the themes for each month really choose us is based on the fact that the four of us for the last 7 years have been meeting on a weekly basis. We meet every single solitary week, twice a week now. And so we are that sacred space for each other. We hold so many in our own practices. We hold space for so many that it is essential for a healer to have that same sacred space to be held. And so this for us, like our personal counsel is in essence the reason for our success. And so within the sacred counsel between the four of us, in sharing what is present with us, the theme becomes very obvious. And because we don't exist in a vacuum, we're part of a collective consciousness. And within the larger collective, there are themes, and then smaller units, if you would, or soul families along the big one. The people that are called to us are very much in sync with whatever processes we ourselves are moving through. And so what keeps us fresh and constantly evolving is this willingness to have a shamanistic experience. And a shamanistic experience is the willingness to go into the death and rebirth process consciously. And we're on a monthly basis, we are moving through these conscious deaths and conscious rebirths as we're discovering the parts of us that no longer serve us. So, for example, Coco was speaking about codependency and setting boundaries. And so, as it pertains to midlife for me, so much I clearly remember about 5 years ago making the conscious choice that this was going to be the sexiest moment, the sexiest era of my life. That I was gonna braid not just with the goddesses, yeah, but also with my inner teenager, with my 15-year-old, with my 13-year-old, with my 24-year-old. And so for me, so much of this journey these last 5 years has been about like sculpting my body. I was always a yogi. I've been a yogi for 2 decades. And now I'm a gym rat. What they call a gym rat. It sounds so funny, but I've been lifting heavy weights. And so for me, so much of this midlife transition has been by me defining it in my own accord. In my own accord, yes, grabbing from inspiration, but really from what I'm inwardly choosing to experience now that I've gone through a codependent marriage that ended in divorce. Now that I don't have this sense of needing to prove anything or my worth to anybody outside of myself, the realignment into integrity with my own beingness. So after all of these initiations, I'm in this glorious phase of utter freedom. And in this utter freedom, I get to choose and define what, it feels like to be 46 years old, and what it'll feel like to be in my 50s and my 60s and my 70s and my 80s, and shoot, to 120 years old. So that's been my journey, personal journey right now. And amongst all of that, there's an intersection amongst the four of us always that speaks to the women and the men that are called to our work.
Of course, I'm going to bring in, pleasure and sacred sexuality. So I love that Yadi said that. A huge part, I think, of being in our midlife is that sometimes it seems like things are a little bit less forgivable than it was when we were in our 20s. Like, we can't necessarily eat all of those foods. If we have those emotions, we might create not just emotions, but unhealthy emotions. We might create diseases in our bodies. If we don't pay attention to our pleasure, it seems like it disappears, right? And so it's like we're in this place where we're like, oh, it's time for us to use our tools, all of the things that we've been learning this whole time, right? And so it's like all of a sudden we're in this place where it's like, okay, it's go time, right? And what can we do to like keep pleasure within our systems while we move, as we grow and become more mature? And if you're getting dry, trying to find like actual lubes that work with your body, or if you need to take certain hormones or things that like that really keep us connected to our pleasure, right? And it's also, we can just do things that simply bring us pleasure, whether that's reading a book on a beach, or I'm also a tantra coach, so I teach people different breathing exercises and things like that really keep us juicy, right? Because I feel like that's one of the things that help us through that, almost like, wait, what is it? It helps us glide through that phase, right? It keeps us wet. But I was happy that Yadi said that, because yes, right? At 46, she's like, this is the sexiest I've ever been, and I'm just going to keep getting sexier.
Damn.
Right?
Aho.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, I mean, very similar to what Anita said, it's almost like the do or die time. This phase, I'm 52. I experienced it through medical menopause. I felt like I had uterine cancer, and so immediately from one day to the next, it was like, I think I was 49, where it was like, you are in menopause, right? And during this menopausal phase, it was almost like all of the little like things that would come up that I would, that I would be like, oh, I'll deal with it later. No, it got louder, it got stronger, and it was just like, do or die. You deal with me now, or else you die. You know what I mean? So that's what it felt like for me. It felt like, Anita and I, there's a project that that was on my mind. It was a TV show that I wanted to write for 10 years. And at that moment, it was like, either you do this or you're going to die with this in you. You know what I mean? Like, so it was just, to me, it feels like a moment for women and men, to be like, this is what I came here to do. You know what I mean? I've put in all of this work. I have, set all the systems in place, or if I haven't, I better do it now. You know what I mean? And then it just feels like the time is now for us to really evolve into what it is that we came here to do. So it's a very ripe time. And it's very exciting.
Yeah. So much of what you're talking about, it just reminds me of the wild woman archetype that Maggie and Johannika and I have been talking about, where we've got the typical maiden, mother, crone archetypes, but the wild woman is sort of before the crone. And it's so much about what you've been saying in terms of really stepping into your authenticity and, being who you came here to be. And I noticed that Anita has her zero fucks sweatshirt on, right? It's like zero fucks given. That is the message of this midlife time. And I think that it can be difficult because, Cora, your story is the story of so many women in terms of not necessarily having boundaries or saying no or always putting other people's needs first before our own. And this is the time of life where it's really an invitation to say, no, actually, fuck off. Like, that doesn't align with what I need to be doing for myself and my personal growth. So I'm curious how you see the wild woman and the goddess archetypes kind of intersecting, especially in terms of like this idea of authenticity.
I love it. I'll just jump in for a moment. I was thinking let's do align with your wild 1 month for our becoming.
Ooh, there you go.
It's that's I love it. I've never heard of the wild woman being between the mother and the crone, but I'm really excited about that. And what comes up for me is this homework that one of my mentors gave us years ago, which is to be bad, like bad in quotes. Like the example he gave is walk up is it the
Down
escalator?
escalator.
Yeah. Just be bad. Go do that. Park in a non-parking spot. Laugh too loud in the movie. Like just
Right.
wild feels like it gives us permission to uh, be fully expressed and not be nearly as aware of what other people are thinking about that expression. It sounds so free.
I love that. Is
Wow.
there a goddess archetype that you can think of who would be, or maybe a few
There's
who would like be great aligned? Yeah.
Yes, there are a lot of them. So when you were saying that, I was like, it's very much within so many of the goddesses. Even if we think of um, what was her name? Pincola. The that book.
Woman who runs with women who run
Yes,
with
the woman
wolves.
who runs with
Yeah.
wolves, and how she brought in like the wild woman archetype and so many, like was telling all of the different stories of that within the book. But it's really a part of almost every goddess. The
Mm.
wild woman like is within so many of them. And just off the top of my head, there's Oya, all of the ones, Pele, Kali, uh, uh there's so many that
Mhm.
she's a part of. And some of us come into the world with her, right? So I guess for me, there's been moments where I've chosen to suppress my wild woman, which is not great. I don't like the word suppress, but I am a Gemini as well, so there's a very wild woman within me. And also one of the things with that, which is really a part of Tantra as well, is that it's so important for us to have our shadow side, like to be in good relation with our shadow and have a secret life, right? Like our secret lives, like obviously I'm not saying like a whole like I'm not saying you have to do like crazy things, but it's super important to have like that secret sacred base. We don't have to tell everybody everything. And
Mm.
so that might allow us to be a little bit more open with our wild, right? Because it's like, oh, everyone doesn't have to know, right? It just allows us to see and embody more and more and more of ourselves.
Mm.
What what for me comes up right now is when I feel into the wild woman archetype, at least for me, it brings forth the healthy inner child because my wild woman is led by this healthy inner child that is connected to nature, that breaks away from synthetic timelines, that breaks away from old restrictive narratives that box us in. And so I feel like bringing in the shadow work and what it means to integrate the shadow, simply put, is willing to do the work of recognizing that the broken parts of us are none other than our wounded inner child that is asking to be held and embraced. So I feel that naturally, as we do this work of healing, which in women bodies, we get the opportunity to do with each menstrual cycle. So a lot of the work that I do is in incorporating the different phases of our menstrual cycle, and how when we're in our premenstrual phase, we get to face our shadow, our woundedness every single solitary month. And we get the opportunity to do the healing work, to embrace that inner child, so that when we come into midlife, we've done the work, and we are wild women. So I guess what I'm saying is that it makes so much sense that the wild woman would be between the mother and the crone, based on the way that the three of you are looking at it. And then furthermore, what came up for me while Coco was speaking is that I feel that when we embrace the wild woman, especially in midlife, it's very significant for the collective, because we have, in the Western world, by then we've, set our foundations. Many of us are parents. We have a career or not, right? But meaning that we've set the foundations. And so at that point, for the wild woman to come forth is so important for the collective, because then we're not aiding in the patriarchy. We're not aiding in neocolonialism. We're breaking away from those constructs so that we can truly leave the legacy behind. And then perhaps when we come into the crone energy, that's the foundation we've set, that we've created new narratives, that we did the groundwork now to just really step into mentorship, perhaps, and not just the doingness of being the leaders that we are when we are in that wild woman archetype. So
Yeah. So true. And you're talking a lot about healing, or in human design terms, we talk about deconditioning, letting go of who we think we need to be in order to be who we came here to be. So I'm just curious if you could speak to how maybe the goddess archetypes can be helpful to release old identities that are no longer serving you, and then invite in new ways of being, or even, with some of the shadow work that you're referring to as well.
So I like, for shadow work, for me, it's something that we sort of hide. We don't really want to tackle, right? It's something that we're like, okay, it's there. And for me, and I know we spoke on this, but it's like, that is the work that makes us magic. That is the actual work that determines what we're bringing to this world. And to look at it that way, I think it brings, like, not only bravery, but it's like, okay, what is here? Because this work can actually, like, turn into a business, or this work can actually heal, my lineage. So my kids don't have to deal with the same things that I've dealt with my parents. So for me, not as much as braiding, but we always do, but it's more like, just really looking towards those things that bring us shame, that bring us fear, that bring us all of those things that bring up any toxic negative feelings, and looking towards that. This is where the medicine is. This is what we actually have to look towards in order to create whatever life that we want. And I think all of us know that. So when we come to our call every week or every couple of weeks, it's like what we bring up, and a lot of times we don't even bring up the story. Sometimes we do, if we want to, like, color it in, but it's like, what was created in us that really upset us? And then now, how can we turn that into the medicine that it needs to be?
Do you have specific practices or rituals that you either work with or recommend to support midlife women in doing that kind of work?
Yeah, there's a one that we love to do with the moon, right? So if we think of like just the full moon, so if you're in a full moon, that means you're moving into a place of releasing, right? Because the moon is going to start waning. And so you can write down the things that you want to release when you're in the full moon energy, and you can burn that obviously in a very safe place
Mhm.
where you're not going to start a fire. And on a new moon, you write down what is it that you want to bring in, and you can burn that as well. So that's like a simple ritual that we love to do. I feel like it never gets old. Like it feels so powerful every single time.
I love that for women who are no longer bleeding, to sync up with the moon instead of relying on that menstrual cycle to work through that shedding and renewal cycle.
Yeah. And
I
I think
would,
what's neat about what Yadi was talking about with cycles is that it's not just women who are bleeding, it's like all of
Right.
us that go through those cycles. But Yadi, if you go ahead.
yeah, so what I help women that are not in that don't have a menstruation for whatever reason, what I help them identify is where they are in their own personal cycle, and to connect it with the moon. And that cycle shifts, so it's not always the same, which requires a lot of deep inner listening, right? And so with the work that so I developed a method which helps people identify their, I call them the energetic imprints. So it's not just core limiting beliefs that are in our shadow self or in our subconscious, but it's also the entire ecosystem that each one of those core limiting beliefs is surrounded by, right? And is a part of. And so as it pertains to like what women can do is when they can identify where they are in their menstrual cycle, meaning are they premenstrual, are they in a place where they're being highly triggered by life, or are they in that restful visionary phase, which is, the time where, generally speaking, you'd be menstruating, where you go through the fire of that intensity and there's an arrival and there's a sense of clarity? Or are you in your masculine expression after menstruation? If you've rested and you've given yourself permission to process, right? If you're in your masculine, then that's the time when you're focused, where it's clear what your direction is. Or are you in your ovulation phase, whether you're ovulating or not? But energetically speaking, ovulation phase would be when we're in our personal feminine space of holding space for others, of being charming, of having our natural gifts and talents just feel tangible.
Mm.
And based on recognizing where you are in your cycle, then you link up to the moon and you say, okay, well, right now I feel like I'm in my premenstrual phase. Well, where is the moon right now? Is it full moon? Is it new moon? And then you synchronize to the larger cycles of nature.
Mm.
And so then you start to work with the moon based on your own personal cycle that you're in. And in that, you, for example, I guess the tip that I'll leave everybody with is that if you're in your premenstrual phase where everything is triggering, that this Western world calls PMSing, then
Mhm.
that's the one opportunity that we have where that veil between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind has thinned to such a degree that if you measure the brain waves of women, we're in a meditative state, meaning that naturally on a monthly basis, women are coming into a meditative state that takes men many different years of constant meditation to attain. And we come to it every month
Hmm.
by the pure gift of being women. And so, because that veil is so thin, it gives us an incredible opportunity to go deep and find out, well, this that is triggering me, what's the narrative that is there in my subconscious mind that is causing that trigger? And that's how little by little we can start to do our own inner healing work of identifying the narratives that we are willingly letting go of, so that then when menstruation comes, there's that rebirth. There's that, okay, I recognized that this that has been triggering, for example, that all relationships end in betrayal because all my relationships are feeling jagged and right. And so what's the narrative underneath that? Oh, that all relationships end in betrayal. And so then if there's that identification of that core limiting belief, then we get the opportunity to recognize that that's not the narrative we want to keep on investing in. And so then when we come into the next phase, which would be that visionary phase, menstruation phase, it's an opportunity to rewrite a new story, a new narrative. And then if we're braiding with the goddesses, then we get to choose any archetype to first walk us through that fire of identifying those really gnarly, core limiting beliefs and energetic imprints, to then, kind of helping us give birth to the new narratives. Like Kuan Yin would be a great one to then come into like universal love, and that actually other people are not our enemies, they're another one of us, right?
Mm.
So that was a really long way to explain that as women, we have this gift to tap into our natural feminine cycles and create all kinds of different rituals
Mm.
that we can either borrow from different cultures, or that we can tap into and create from our own creativity.
And how much growth is possible with intention, right? And awareness. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's incredible. So, for any of our listeners who are new to goddess archetypes, do you have any recommendations for where do you start, especially if they're feeling particularly disconnected from themselves?
Come on to our calls.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Our
I would say, so the way I was introduced to it was like I've always loved, the earth. I've always loved going outside, grounding myself. So, the first thing that came to mind, or that actually I think Yadi or one of our sisters said, is you're the earth mama. I love, I love being a mom. And I'm like, Earth Mama, okay, Mother Earth, that seems so grand, but okay, we'll go with that. And so I think to start, you sort of take the qualities that you already have and you do a little research on, you can even put in, on the computer. What I think may have been what I said was like, what qualities do I have? And that also another goddess embodies.
Mm.
So in that way, it's like, okay, Mother Earth. Okay, there's a bunch of Mother Earth, different goddesses that you may relate more to the African goddess, or you may relate more to the Irish goddesses. Like there's different goddesses that embody those qualities. So I would start by saying, like, what are some of my qualities? And then put that into like what goddess embodies these qualities, and then read a little more into those goddesses and see if that is something you want to call in more of in your life, or something that you can relate to more. And so you can sort of start there, I think.
Beautiful. Okay, so I ask this question to my podcasts, which is how have you become who you came here to be as you make your way here in midlife? So, if each of you maybe has a little something to say about, and maybe it's not even how have you become, but maybe how are you becoming who you came here to be?
I would love to say that, answer that. A big part of it are these ladies here, because um, I've definitely had really challenging moments in my life where I used to call myself the problem child. I
Mm.
was like,
Oh,
I don't even want to get on the calls. Like, I wouldn't put my video on. And if they didn't hold me up during those times, I don't know where I would be. And so I feel like, um, I definitely feel like this community and our greater community has held me up into the person that I am becoming.
Mm.
Yeah.
oh. That's so beautiful, Anita. And I 100% agree. We also are so big into community. Who do you surround yourself with? Because those people will hold you accountable. They will hold you up. They will hold you in that goddess archetype. If you had said, oh, my dream is blah, 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 they're holding you to that dream and what you said you came here to do. Because we all know that sometimes we're like, I just don't feel like it anymore. I just want to get in my bed. Okay, rest. And now where are you? So this goddess council for me is also, as well as our greater community, uh is directly related to who I'm becoming. And now that we've done this, I do this everywhere I go. So my friend group who I'm letting into my life, it's like all people that can hold space for me in every walk of life. So it's intentional. It's intentional who we choose to put in our lives so that we can go on to this next phase of life and become who we are meant to be.
Love that.
I want to answer this too, please. Of course, I agree completely with both of you. Um, and how am I becoming who I'm meant to be? There's been a shift recently for me in just noticing when the stories of not good enough or unworthy or yeah, the fearful parts come up. For a while there, I was trying to change those parts, like trying to rewrite the story um or tell like shift it so it's positive. And in the last, I want to say maybe even couple months, I have been saying to these parts, you can feel not good enough. That's okay. You can be so scared. You can feel unworthy. And I love you so much with that. I love you in that. And there's been this integration then, like suddenly these parts don't feel bad or wrong or pushed away. They feel welcomed. And then there's just more love and acceptance. And it really sets me free from trying to like fix or change these very human, very natural parts of me. So that's what I'll share in this moment.
Love that.
That's beautiful, Coco. I was
Thank-
reflecting on that last night in my journal. And so in answering this question, who can you ask it one more time, Lori, so I could really
Yeah.
feel it?
Yeah. I'm curious, how do you feel you are becoming who you came here to be?
Hmm. Hmm. For me, it's, well, first, everything that Anita and Ivana spoke about. Without sisterhood, I mean, every single solitary client I have, I mean, if there's no sisterhood or brotherhood, I work with men as well, then then we're gonna be sick, either physically, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually.
Mm.
And so that for me was very intentional, sisterhood, probably in the since I became a mother. So 14 years ago, I was intentional about sisterhood and I invested in sisterhood. I mean, to the degree that I have not been in circles of women for, at least on a weekly basis in the last 14 years consistently.
Mm.
And so yes for that. And in that container, I would say that my becoming has been, I was very much in the ethers. I had my spiritual awakening in 2000. So I was very much in, meaning from my heart chakra up, very, very cosmic. And that's how Anita and I became best friends 20 years ago, because she was one of those kindred spirits that we identified with each other, like, oh my gosh, okay, so we get that this human thing is a strange thing. And so I've actually gone into, I would say, since becoming a mother, so the last 14 years, going from being a cosmic being into having a human experience and not feeling as though the human experience is beneath me if I'm enlightened. And so in the process of that union between my human self and my cosmic self, I'm now at this juncture where like, okay, I've definitely, since my divorce 7 years, about 6, 7 years ago, it's been even more intensified, this becoming human, this getting my nails done, this, that, getting my nails done is not beneath me, it doesn't make me less spiritual. So anyway, so in that process, I'm now at this juncture where I'm going back into re-exploration of my cosmic self, my connection with the stars, with cosmic beings. And so that's where I am, and I'm a newbie again. It's a door that I'm like that I've already opened, and that I'm just stepping into a new graduation phase, or educational phase within, and all's while being held by my my soul tribe. And the soul tribe has different I would say circles. This right here, these three women are my inner circle, and they're my family, and and so yeah, that's why it's possible. Keep on growing and thriving, and and messing up, and when you mess up, getting back up and dusting off, and building muscle as you fall and you get back up. And it's all possible because I'm being held in unconditional love.
So beautiful. Thank you
Lori,
so
we would
much.
love to hear your answer to that as well.
Yes.
I knew this was coming. That's so and of course it has to be you as the first people who have actually asked me that. Yeah. And I feel like for me it's about listening at a different and deeper level than I ever have. And I'm starting to, I've always been called sweet, or for most of my adult life, I've been called sweet. Oh, you're so sweet. And I think recently I've just started to become more curious about that, because there is a part of me that resonates with it in terms of, I've got lots of Cancer energy, and there's a lot of mothering kind of energy, but I'm also pretty fucking spicy. And I feel like this phase is really pulling me more toward that. And the whole like zero fucks given, and learning how to set boundaries, and learning how to just speak up instead of letting things where I would have taken a back seat, or, sacrificed what I was thinking. So that's sort of what's coming out right now. And it feels very much like puberty, It just, yeah. Yeah. But thank you so much for asking.
That's amazing, Lori.
So
It's exciting.
tell it is exciting. But tell us all the things about where we can find you, how people can work with you.
Yeah, so we have a website, www.goddesswisdomcouncil.com, and we are also on Instagram, Goddess Wisdom Council. And all of us, if you go to the website, you can go to our bios and you can actually see how to work with everyone singularly as well. And then we also have we have our monthly group coaching call, which is a membership for becoming, as well as we have our Costa Rica retreat next year in April at Imiloa. And then we also have just other ways that you can work with us, whether it's through business, or if you're working through something that is super difficult and you need all four of our attention, there's a way to work with us as well. So it's all on our website, goddesswisdomcouncil.com.
Perfect, which is gorgeous, by the way. When I was looking at it to prepare for the podcast, I was just like, you're a photographer. I mean, these women, if you happen to be listening to this pod, you've got to catch the video at some point or go visit their website because they're, yeah, jaw-droppingly gorgeous, all of them, and just so great, like hashtag goals for midlife women. So if you're looking for inspiration for they've got it in spades. So I'm just going to express my true, deep, sincere gratitude for coming on the pod today. And it's been so wonderful to share in your energy, and my body has just been singing the entire time, and I've been emotional and I've been chills and so I hope that our listeners are feeling the good energy and the good vibes, and please go follow these women, and thank you so much again.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Shout out to Natural Shilajit. Shilajit. How does one actually pronounce this substance? Anyway, it's this magical resin. Yes, a resin like the stuff that you use to clean out of your pop pipe. But this resin is truly magical in that it's got 85 essential minerals. I'm experimenting with it right now as a substitute for pre-workout because it boosts energy, and I'm tired. Hello, menopause. And I wanted a natural way to support my dips in the morning, especially before working out. So there's a link in the show notes for 10% off if you want to give it a try. Thank you so much for listening to Midlife by Design. If you are curious about human design and how it can help you redefine yourself in midlife, I'd love to invite you to a free call with me. Let's hop on a Zoom, explore your unique design, and also what might be keeping you stuck. I so believe that human design can unlock so many doors. So let's see what possibilities it holds for you. And as we close, I'm sending you the strength to release what no longer serves you, my goddess friend, the joy to fill your days, and the clarity to be who you came here to be.